When it comes to AI, I am so fucking sick of the defense where people go, well, look at Photoshop. People said the same thing about Photoshop. People just hate it when new technology comes along that makes their skill set irrelevant. Yeah, because if you put Photoshop in the hands of someone that has no idea how to use it and has no idea how to make art, they can just make art because that's how it works. AI isn't like Photoshop. AI is like a search engine. You put in a string of words and you get a result. And the only results you can get on are based on things that have already been uploaded. Or like a character creator in a video game. If it has a randomize option and you press that, you didn't create shit. You have just been given a random amalgamation of the bunch of different things that the developers have coded it with. It's just a random number generator. There it is. But more importantly, it's more like a search engine. There are actually advanced ways to use search engines, believe it or not. You can put words in brackets or highlight things with hyphens and so on and so forth. And doing these things will have different effects on the search engine to help you refine what you're searching for. But most people who have no idea about any of these extra little features with search engines can just put in what the fuck they want and they're going to get a result. You're not creating shit. You're just putting words into a search engine and getting a result based on what's already been uploaded to it. That's it. This is not the same thing. Look, I'm a photographer, hobbyist photographer. I use Photoshop, okay? I am going to be entirely honest and say what I do with digital photography is so much less skilled than what people did with film photography back in the day. And what traditional artists do. It's not the same skill set. It is actually lazier. Now, you can't make art with these things because, again, you give a camera to someone who doesn't know how to use a fucking camera and all they're going to do is point, press. You know why I took up photography in the first place? Because none of my family could even aim a fucking camera without cutting off people's heads or having the entire image bleached out because they've aimed it directly into the fucking sun. They didn't have the basic understanding. But me, someone who never had any education in this whatsoever, I could pick up a camera and understood the basic thing of, oh, this little box is where the picture's gonna come from, and if I aim it directly into the light, it bleaches everything out. But you compare the pictures I took back then to the pictures I can take now, and it's night and day. Why? Because I understand lighting. You go out to the exact same location, different times of the day, different times of year, the lighting is going to be completely different. You're not going to get the same result. You need to understand the camera in order to get a good picture on a technical level. And on an artistry level, you need to have the eye for it. With AI, you need to put in a string of words and press the button. It's not even the same thing, even with photography. Yeah, there are advanced ways to use AI. I've seen it. I've fucked around with AI myself. It's a fun little game that you can play. But at no point is actual art being created. You're essentially pressing a randomizer in a character creator and getting a result based on what's already there. And most of what it's being fed does not have the approval, the blessing of the artists that they've basically stolen it from. The amount of times I've used an AI and seen artist styles directly ripped from artists I'm familiar with, even furry artists. Like, there's this one guy, I forget his name, I used to follow him on DeviantArt years ago. He tended to do foxes and, like, skulls and things, and he had a very, like, sketchy, kind of, like, rough paper style. Really cool. I've not really seen much like him other than that. I've seen AI produce the same results. So it's a pretty good chance that they've stolen his work. it's not the same thing. This is not just new technology making jobs easier. Photoshop user can have a variety of brushstroke styles. I watch digital artists and they will swap between brushstroke styles. I don't think anyone in their right mind will say that the level of artistry a traditional artist will use compared to a digital artist is the same. Traditional requires a hell of a lot more skill. And I'm pretty sure every honest digital artist will agree. Just like every photographer will agree that their skill set is nowhere near as difficult to reach as digital art or traditional art. But it's all still art. Because it requires humans. It requires our brain. It requires our personality, our imagination, our eye, our skill set. AI requires that, sure, just not of the person using it. It requires taking from other people, putting it in the algorithm, and then someone else using it, and other people's work being used to get their result. It's a search engine. That's all it is. It's a search engine. This is not new technology. This is not a... Well, it is new technology. This is not a new tool. And the only reason this is going to be the future is it because it makes powerful, rich people more money and gains them more power. Because we've seen advertisements being made with AI now. You don't have to hire actors. You don't have to hire sets. You don't have to have somebody that knows how to do makeup or lighting. You don't have to, plan anything, really. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to go to a set. You don't have to take reels. You don't have to hire writers. You don't have to do shit. You just have to put a few words into a machine and it does it all for you. That's it. Imagine the quantity of money a corporation is going to save by not hiring all these different skill sets that is required. That is why AI is going to take off. Not because it's good, not because it's better, not because it's the new grand development in art that people are going to switch to just because it's more convenient, but because it's cheaper, way cheaper and way faster. And that's the driving force. Most of the argument around this is strictly money. That's all it is. It's money, 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 money. A lot of people don't even consider the concept of art, the concept of artistry. This is the same reason I rail against a lot of modern art. A banana taped to a wall is not art. A bunch of paint being thrown onto a canvas is not art. A paint being put onto a machine that does this is not art. A fly being nailed to a board and have a bit of glass put on it is not art. A lot of this is meaning with imagery attached to it. Or just some random shit with a random bit of meaning stapled to it. A lot of this shit doesn't mean shit unless it's got a famous name attached to it. At which point it's got nothing to do with art and everything to do with social hierarchy. One of my favourite artists is Van Gogh. Van Gogh. However you want to fucking pronounce his name, I don't care. One of my favourite artists is Van Gogh. That man had a unique style that people didn't appreciate back then. Because back then, that kind of painting with colour rather than detail wasn't considered real art. He was a starving artist. He had a lot of mental health problems, as many artists tend to have. You're not going to get many stable people being passionate artists. Artistry tends to come hand in hand with mental health or pain in some way. It's depressing, but that is the case. AI can't understand any of this. Van Gogh was also inspired by Asian art, believe it or not. Yeah, he was an old school weeaboo. And you can see it in some of his works. He painted with colour. Some of his imagery, like the cafe, the starry night, you can almost feel that quiet nighttime vibe. You can almost feel the wind, hear the bugs chirping. If you've ever been to a place like that at night, you can feel it through his image. Because he painted with colour, not necessarily detail. I actually like a lot of this absurdist style art as well. The melting clocks, things like that. A lot of Hieronymus Bosch, however you pronounce his name. That kind of stuff. Of course, I'm recording, so there goes the phone. Alright, I chose to ignore it. I'll call them back. I'm not going to get into half an hour conversation. I want to be on this ball. But a lot of this conversation we're having now is more in line with the modern art debate. Because it's not art. They're just shoving slum. Like, here's a fucking hair tie. I'm going to put this down here and put it in a glass case. That's art. Why? Because I'm a famous person with a big name and I say so. So a bunch of people can money launder by buying that fucking, like, hair tie under glass for, like, several £1,000,000. That's not art. That's just fucking high-class fuckery. It's not the same thing. And because of how certain kinds of artists like that are often depicted in media, that's how a lot of people view art. They view this modern art shit because that's what we've seen everywhere, the paint splashes. I get it. I forget the name of the artist, but the one that paints with splashes, right? There is a skill set in getting that much paint on a canvas without the canvas falling apart. And I understand that the choice in colour and how they put the paint on the canvas themselves, how they flick it, there is a level of artistry in it, right? Where each one of these pieces, is it Pollock? I think it's Pollock, I could be wrong. Each one of these pieces is essentially an expression of emotion, right? It's an expression of emotion. He's flicked the brushes. He's chosen certain brushes. He flicked it in certain ways, used certain colours, brushed the stroke in a certain way, and it's all about getting their emotions out on canvas. I get it. The end result, a bunch of paper shoved on a bunch of paint randomly just on a canvas. It's like 2001: A Space Odyssey. This is an amazing movie if you want to study film. If you want to study film and the artistry behind it, incredible movie. As an actual movie itself, it's fucking garbage. It's boring as shit. It's fucking pretentious. It's up its own arse. It's boring. It's crap. But as a piece... Oh, here we go. But as a piece to study... Nope. It's that time of day, apparently. Somebody trying to sell fibre. I actually am interested, so I picked up a thing and I'll look into them. I'll never do any deals over the door. Anyway, as I was saying, yeah, I think it's Pollock. I could be wrong. I'm terrible with names and whatnot, so forgive me. But essentially, I get the meaning behind it. I get the artistry behind it. And if you're the kind of person that's really into that, then yeah, you could probably appreciate Pollock's work. But overall does that and has more skill. For example, Van Gogh. Like, his art looks way better than a bunch of paint sprinkled and, like, thrown all over a canvas. And it has emotion in it. It has feeling in it. It has meaning to it. And it has skill. way more skill than flicking some paint on. Because I'll tell you, I've actually considered doing that myself. I've actually considered, like, getting an easel, getting a canvas, buying some paints, and just getting my emotions out on paper, on canvas. I've legitimately considered doing that several times, like getting some of my favorite colors and throwing them on the canvas, waiting for it to dry, do the next bit, just getting whatever my emotions are out at the time, connected to colors that I kind of connect with negative emotions, then when I'm in a good mood, connecting it with positive emotions and putting the two canvases side by side up in my house somewhere. To me, that would be something that means a lot, because that is my emotions, my kind of time on canvas. To anyone else, it's trash, because it's just paint flickering. And that's kind of the thing. This is why a lot of art like that only really appeals to a specific kind of mindset. And it ultimately comes down to, okay, yes, this has meaning, and you can appreciate the humanity behind it, which is way more than can be said about AI. But there are other artists that do this with more talent and actually give you something that is visually stimulating instead of just emotionally stimulating. It is visually and emotionally stimulating at the same time and has artistry and skill that is far more respectable than just flicking paint at a canvas. You know? So even if you can understand the meaning behind something, it doesn't make that thing good or quality. It just means somebody attached meaning to it. Or it meant something to the artist. But that is still more art than AI, which is literally just putting some words into a search engine and giving you a visual result or an audio result. And I've played with AI. I got really into a music one. There's actually like a joke as theme for my channel for my Skyrim kind of like Let's Play. I've used AI to create that song. And it's fun. Is actual music being made? No, not really. Imitations are being made, but it's not real music. It's like... I want to say sampling, but I've heard real music come from sampling, because, again, like, yeah, it's just not real art. It's an amalgamation of everything it's been fed. It's fun. It's fun to use. It's fun to play with. But at no point is real art being made. I love character creators in video games, but I'm not actually creating shit. I'm using a tool that has a bunch of options and selecting them. But even then, that argument is AI is a tool, Photoshop is a tool. Again, you put someone that has no experience with art whatsoever in front of Photoshop, they can't use it. They can't use it. They can't use Photoshop to make art. You put that same person in front of an AI, they can use that to make an image or to make music. They just put what they want in and it comes up. This is not a tool. This is a cheat engine. I mean, a search engine. That's all it is. It's just a search engine. It's not remotely comparable. I am so sick of hearing this argument. And again, like, I've railed against modern art quite a bit. I do enjoy absurdist art. But again, these things are often mixed together, modern art and absurdist art. Well, absurdist art tends to have talent behind it. Can anyone argue that the Clocks painting doesn't have talent behind it? The reason why that was weird and people didn't like it back at the day was because the topic standard, the style standard was different. Much like with Van Gogh, the standard was different. That's why people didn't really like this kind of art at the time, because it was completely different to what was standard at the time. But the artistry involved is not in question. But that is what is involved with AI. That is the part of it that's in question with AI. The artistry. There's no artistry there. Every bit of artistry in AI has come from the real art it's It's being fed to generate this amalgamized clone. It's not real art. It's like illegally downloading a movie online, and you've got somebody with a fucking camera recording a cinema screen. Did that person, did you just create a movie? No, you've got a poor quality clone of something somebody else created. Or many people created in the case of that. It's not the same thing. But people are trying to argue, oh, it's just a new piece of technology that people don't like because they have to learn a new skill set. No. The reason why AI is going to take off, like I've said, is because it saves rich people and corporations a lot of money. It's the sole reason. Not because of quality. Not because of, like, just a new tool. No, but because it saves people a lot of money. And time. That's why CGI took over. And again, CGI can actually be argued to be artistry, because there is a skill set that you need to learn with making models and rigging and shit like that. There is real artistry in that. But I have not met many people who claim that CGI is better than practical effects or traditional animation. Disney doesn't even have the facilities anymore to make traditional animation, because CGI is just quicker and easier. Money, money, money. I have got to the point now where I've seen quite a few good CGI movies, but none of them have looked anywhere near as good to the traditional animated movies, or the rotoscoping trend of the 80s. None of them have looked anywhere near as good as that. None of them. They look fine. They don't look bad. But there's so much soul missing from so many CGI movies that practical effects, traditional animation, it just, even rotoscoping cannot, like, it can't compare with those things. And it's not just nostalgia talking. The only thing that goes down is high definition. Definition has changed over the years. That's improved. But the artistry behind the way these things look, they just look so much better. They look so much better. CGI often looks amalgamized, just all kind of the same kind of designs and so on and so forth. You know, and I understand people copy the big companies. Everyone copies Disney or you know, fucking whatever the other one is, Pixar. I get that. You know, like there was Don Bluth back in the day who, quite frankly, made Disney movies a lot better than Disney. And considering he worked with them for a little bit, he used a similar style. But again, like, there are good CGI movies, but they don't look anywhere near as good as the traditional animation. The practical effects, even rotoscoping. They just don't. And they age like milk. CGI ages so quickly. Whereas most of this old stuff still looks as good today as it did back then. Better, because of the aesthetic of it just looking better. Looking more interesting. Yeah, CGI took over. And it took over because it was cheaper and quicker. That's it. Have you seen movie sets now? Just a bunch of people fucking around in front of a green screen. It's boring as shit, man. Making ofs aren't fun anymore. It's literally just a few people, like, jumping around a green screen and then everything is just a fucking computer. It was interesting around the age of, like, Star Wars or Jurassic Park. But now it's just every movie. It's not interesting. I used to love watching horror movie documentaries. Seeing how they do the makeup. And how they put together the rigs for, like, the fucking werewolf from American Werewolf in London. I used to love that shit. It's just a computer now. That's it. It's just a computer now. Boring as shit. I'm not going to argue that there's no artistry, because there is, but the artistry is just not the same. And it shows as well, because modern actors have nothing to act with. They might have one guy dressed as a Wookiee or something, but they have nothing to really act with. Because why? Why spend the time making prosthetics? Making rigs? Like, you know, animatronics? Why spend the time making any of this permanent stuff when we can just put it all on a computer? It just feels so soulless, so hollow, so corporate. But that's why it'll take off. It'll also take off because, well, if you get a random phone call now, you know, one of these people after your information, well, I like to tell a lot of these people to themselves. I can't do that anymore because they might steal my voice and put that in a AI machine and use that to get around security stuff. Especially if they pick up my other details. Yeah, so that's one way around it. This AI stuff is going to be used for corporate and political propaganda, without question. It's going to be used by shady companies to steal information and make shit up and scam the fuck out of you. Like, AI has more in comparison to, like, the mobile phone or the internet than it does the things it's being compared to. Photoshop didn't change the world. It became ubiquitous. Like, pretty much every photographer I know uses Photoshop. I shoot in RAW because you just put it in Photoshop and then you can pretty much make it look better and fix any issues and so on and so forth. I shoot in RAW, so I use Photoshop. But I will say, you can tell film compared to digital. Film has a look to it, a quality to it that digital has never been able to replicate. I say that as someone that doesn't shoot film. I would love to have a darkroom. I would love to do that, but fuck that. But yeah, Photoshop became ubiquitous with photography specifically, and there are a lot of digital artists out there. But it didn't change the world. It affected the art scene, but it didn't change the world. Mobile phones changed so much. I'm talking to you on one right now. You're probably watching this on one. Mobile phones changed so much. The internet completely changed the world. I've said a few times, I'm glad that I had a childhood without mobile phones and without the internet, and an adulthood with it. Because I was able to develop before putting everything on here. And now that I'm an adult, this shit is insanely useful. And I'm not just going to blindly hate on AI. AI is going to do amazing things. It's going to be a double-edged sword. Just like the internet, just like mobile phones. Both of these things have caused colossal issues in culture and society and all this kind of thing. But they've also been massive blessings in many ways. And AI is going to be the same thing. They're going to use it in ways that's going to improve lives. Save lives. Just make lives easier. But it's also going to be used to ruin quality. Make corporations even more money. Lose a shit ton of jobs. And a lot of people say, oh yeah, you're going to lose jobs, but more jobs are going to be created. I told you about the advertisements being made. How many jobs with AI are going to be created that are going to make up for makeup artists, lighting technicians, like people that go out and look for fucking locations, you know, the actors, the directors, and all this kind of thing. What's going to make up for that? The only thing I could think of is maybe a law will come in which you can't use, like copyright law basically, where you can't use AI unless everything it's been fed has been approved of or paid for by a certain thing, right? if that law comes in, that'll kill a lot of AI right away. Because the only reason why they're using it right now is because they're essentially getting the work of real artists for free. In a roundabout way. Right? So if they do it that way, that means then you'll only be able to use certain companies' AI that has had art of various kinds fed to it in an approved way by artists making it for the thing, and art that has been purchased from real artists to add to it, so on and so forth. And at that point, or voice actors agreeing to have their voice fed to it, like an all-consuming freaking machine. And maybe that, if that law comes in, where you cannot use AI for profit unless everything it's been fed has been acquired through legal means, maybe that'll fix this. And maybe that'll get rid of a lot of this worry. Because then a lot of these arts are still going to continue for now, until that AI gets to the point in which it knows most things, and then the problems kick off again. But it will stop a lot of this in its tracks if a law like that comes in for now. But as it stands, the way AI is right now, where it's essentially a copyright machine, yeah, no wonder companies are jumping all over it. Because you don't have to pay shit. It costs a fraction of the cost it would cost to produce other things. A tiny percentage compared to what it used to cost. Because there's so many people you're skipping out. There's so many people you don't have to pay. When people talk about this, they think of just traditional artists or digital artists. But they don't think of all the different moving parts that go into making things that no longer need to exist anymore. You know, the only thing I could possibly think of are the people entering the details and the people that touch up the issues that come out of AI, like fucked up teeth, fucked up eyes, fucked up hands, limbs, that kind of thing. But outside of that, a lot of jobs are going to be lost. You know, and again, it's not just money. Quality is going to go down. We've already seen this with CGI, but quality is going to go down. If writing gets replaced, that's going to go down. You think it's homogenized now? Whoo boy, ready to live in Tropetopia? And again, depending on how the AI is rigged and operated, there are certain topics that you'll never see. Ever. Because it's not approved by the AI. You know? You think censorship's bad now? Whew. AI is not the new piece of technology that people don't like because it's replacing them. It's not that. AI is the next big technological development that is going to change the world we live in. Like electricity. Like the fucking internet. Like the mobile phone. That is what this is going to be. And I'm sure of it. People who know me know that I don't get super hype or super into every bit of technology that comes. Like VR, for example. Yeah, I've tried out VR at this point. It's fun. I don't trust it. It's going to fuck up people's eyes. We're going to see we're going to see eye results shoot up in a few years. Because a lot of people are going to have eye issues because of VR. That's definitely coming. It's also not practical. So it's not like digital gaming. Downloading games instead of buying them physically. I still like to own them physically. But I'll admit, just playing a game on my machine that I've downloaded, yeah, I can understand that being the future. But because it's just so much more convenient. But then the problem comes in with keeping games. The 3DS, the Wii U, they went down. There's a lot of games specifically made on those systems that can only really physically be played on those systems that are gone for good. PT. I still have a PlayStation with PT installed. That's gone for good. And we've also heard stories of Sony basically removing software from your console. So I might not even have PT anymore because I've not been on that console for over like 2-3 years. So I might not even have PT anymore because they might have just removed it in an update. You know, so things get lost to time. Archiving is harder than ever before because we can't have physical stuff. And the only way to get around it is to infringe copyright by getting stuff illegally and downloading and keeping it on archives. Because, you can keep these archives physically and never upload them to the internet where people can download them illegally. But then what happens to those physical things? Look at Doctor Who. I think it's like season 2, of Doctor Who. I can't remember which one it is, but many years ago, a BBC warehouse or whatever it is burnt down. And a lot of shit was lost. Doctor Who, there's like maybe 4 surviving episodes of like 1-2 seasons of Doctor Who from way back in the day. And even half of them, there's only like half of the episode. I don't think there's a full episode. I could be wrong, but it's all lost. But it was because it was all kept physically. People that hunt down lost media. A lot of that is lost because physical tapes and discs, they get damaged over time. If they're left in anywhere with even the slightest bit of moisture, they're fucked. And that's just what happens. So keeping stuff like this, even traditional art, the same thing happens to that. If it's left in the sun, it fades over time. This is why a lot of galleries rotate their works, or when certain original paintings are going to be put up, it's put up for a short amount of time under heavy garden protection. Because it can't be up for that long. If you actually want to see the original piece of work, that's your chance. And then it's going to go back in the archive, because otherwise, if we leave it out indefinitely, it's going to be damaged. You know, the entropy of the universe comes for us all, but this is, as things become more digitized, this is becoming simultaneously easier and harder. Easier because as long as there's a file out there somewhere, it survives, but harder because it's harder to track. You know, it's... I got into quite the tirade with this I didn't expect to go on. I hope you enjoyed this video, but, yeah, I'm not strictly against AI. I'm strictly against AI being called art. Because it's not art. It will never be art. It might, in time, be considered art in the future, but that doesn't mean it is. And it will be considered art because the companies use it so fucking much that it normalizes the use to the point where it might even become the normal way of making art, but it won't be art. It won't be. Because it's too automated. Like, to a ridiculous degree. People said the same thing about Photoshop, people say the same thing about cameras, but you're doing more. So much more than just putting a bunch of words into a search engine and getting a result. It's not the same thing. If you put a tool in the hands of someone that doesn't know how to use it, that tool is useless. If you put a search engine in the hands of somebody that doesn't know how to fucking use it, you just tell them, just put some words in and they can do it. It's not the same thing. You don't instantly become a fucking engineer because you have an engineer's tools. You don't instantly become a musician because you have a guitar. But you can put guitar music in an AI music generator and you can make some music with guitar. But you're not actually making music. You're telling a computer what to do. You're commissioning a computer. You're not making art yourself. At the very best, you're commissioning art from a device. It's not the same thing. And I'm really, really sick of hearing that argument. Because to me, it's just people who don't care dismissing it. You know, they're either someone who wants to make money from themselves. There's someone who's incredibly ignorant. There's someone who just doesn't care but wants to shit over the people who do. Or there's someone that stands to make a lot of money from AI themselves, and that's why they're defending it. But no one who actually knows art, cares about art, is calling AI-generated stuff actual art. No one who cares about art is doing that. Only people who care about money. That's it. You know, You know, there's a reason why we have the starving artist trope. It's because people don't respect real art. You know, there's a reason why a lot of artists hate modern art, because it's not art. It's social status. And that's it. You know? Anyway, before I start repeating myself again, I hope you've enjoyed this video. And I will see you some other time. Bye.